Welcome to my office. Today we're going to talk about Flambient indoor architecture shots. So stay tuned. All right, so recently I did a shot for a client who needed some images for her Airbnb. They have had to be high quality images, well processed, that had even light. Uh, Pretty much the standard. They were pretty easy shots in the sense that there weren't a lot of situations that there were um, too many light sources. But I tried to combine a little bit of the lights that they had in the room with the ambient light, and I also used the strobe. The reason I prefer this method over doing HDR, which is combining several images for both your highlights and your shadows into one, is because I had issues in the past where it wouldn't merge properly, and sometimes it would make the image feel a little bit too artificial. Flambient, which is flash and ambient light, is just one shot. So the idea is quite simple, to use a flash. And in this case, I used a strobe, a very large strobe. The settings were, I didn't shoot it at a high intensity, but the idea is that it gives a very even cool light throughout the whole room. It removes a lot of shadows, and it's very easy to set up because once you find the right spot, which usually is at corners, for example, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the light bounces across the whole room. And this is a way that you get this even tones all across. I did a couple of shots where I only shot for they had some incandescent light bulbs. I did some shots of that so that I could combine in post afterwards. But at the end of the day, it worked out because the strobe wasn't that intense, and I managed to get some of the incandescent light bulbs to show, and it had some of the rooms had some light that would come in through some domes. Some natural light. So I did some shots also adding to that for the client to choose. Pretty simple shots. The idea is the best way that you can simplify your workflow, especially when you're limited on time and space. In this case, I did combine a couple of images together to create some panoramic shots of the room, which is also very useful. But if you have your even light, you can just go ahead and shoot the whole room, and it should come out all right. Let me show you some of the things that I did over there, uh, how I set up the lights, and we'll be right back. All right, so basically I'm using one softbox over there. It's not necessary to have multiple softboxes. The walls are going to bounce the light around. Hang on a second, let me see. Yeah, F11, even all the way down here. Yes, it's about half a stop difference. It's not too much of a difference. So basically, this is the best way to neutralize all the different color casts. I'm going to turn the lights on so that it can create a nice effect. I'll combine the exposures with the flash and the exposures without a flash to show the little light bulbs turned on. Okay, so let me show you in LightRoom some of the things that I did in this photo shoot. Let me start with this image right here. up so we can take a look at this. All right, so this was basically a test shot. ISO 400. I used 24 millimeter f11. Okay, 1/200th of a second. You can see that here in this test shot, I start to retain detail in these light bulbs, which I wanted to do. This was very important because I wanted to mix some of the light sources, because in this particular room, for example, there is a dome right here which lets in natural light. So I played around a little bit with the camera, trying different shots, different angles, so that I could get a mixture of all of them. Let me show you some of the examples. Of course, these are all test shots. It's not the final ones. I was just getting a feeling for here. I didn't use the strobe, but just some natural light coming in here. That's another one. See, that's one of the things about architecture photography. You're gonna end up with some columns and things and also you can see that a little bit of the perspective is warped right here, because this is as far back as I could go. I mean, I didn't have a wider lens with me at the time, so I had to do the best I could. But later in post, I managed to remove this wall right here. That's another shot right there. You can see the reflection of the strobe right there on the door, which I managed to remove later on. This is a simple shot right here. Now, basically, what one has to do is to find the right balance between your strobe and the natural light. The natural light could be light bulbs, it could be light coming in here, for example. So it's just playing around with your exposure. F11 for me at ISO 400 was a sweet spot. Here's another shot. It was a little bit too hot over here, but the difference here was about, from this point to this point was about one stop. So it's everything, to that extent, it's not difficult to be able to fix it in post. It shouldn't be an issue at all. Let's see. Oh, this one. I didn't want to even light in this shot because I did want to show a little bit of the texture of the wall. I could put a strobe behind me, but I think it looks really great this way. And the idea was that I was going to later on composite them into a panoramic. Another shot, a little bit overexposed, but it's minimal. Oh, here we go. That's another one. And more of the bad, which I can composite it to one shot later. This was one of the first shots that I did. I was just getting a feeling of how everything looked like. You can tell that my light source is the wrong light source. There are some ugly shadows over here, which I need to fix. But it's always great to scout the location, play around with your flash, play around with your exposures, keeping in mind that you want to be able to bring everything together at the end. Here in this image, you can actually see my strobes right there. This is a very good image to show you what ideas I was trying to come up with. For shots where I was just shooting the bad, this is probably a good angle, so that it does give some texture to this wall right here. Of course, you don't want to shoot it this way because you have some terrible shadows right here. But I shot this as a reference to show where my strobe was. And let me see, hang on a second, see what's next. Just a combination of shots right there. And I'm just playing around with the camera, trying to find the right angles. Of course, this is not going to be a final shot because of the shadows over here. Some outdoor images. They haven't finished the floor yet, so I'm going to go back there and shoot it. They're going to put a stone floor right here, which I'll go back to photograph it. Okay, so let me show you some of the, oh, here's a good example. This image is exactly the the idea, And this is just a test shot, okay? So the idea is that you want to have detail outdoors and indoors. So all I need to do is basically try to match the exposure outside, inside here and at f22 ISO 800. And so basically my strobe is hitting pretty hard here to be able to get this effect where you can see through windows and you can see the details with just one shot without having to combine. Of course, this is a test shot. It's just so that so I had an idea of what kind of exposures I could work with. But this is a good point. I mean, once you go outside and you know how it looks like on the outside, and you know basically that you're shooting at f22 at 200 of a second, okay, then you match that indoors with a light meter on this right here in order to match as close as possible. Because if you don't, let's say you're too exposed here to her, if I would lower the strobe, we would have this would be well exposed, and the outside would be just probably completely white, because it's probably easily without the strobe, it's probably 10 stop difference between the inside and outdoors. So let's see what else we got here. I did play around a little bit with some architecture details. This is very interesting. The way you do this is you basically know what your exposure is outside, so you can get some of the blue sky coming through, some of the colors, some reflections. It's just a matter of matching the outdoor exposure to the indoor using the intensity of the strobe. But this is what I wanted to show you guys. Towards the end, I was leaning more towards something like this, okay? Which is talking to the client. I mean, I could have exposed this perfectly, just have, the walls perfectly white, but the client really liked this combination of incandescent and to show how natural light pours into the room. So this was one of the images that I started playing around with in order to combine these three. Already, I look at my ISO is already at 64, and at 8 and a third of a second. It's a longer exposure. Probably with a tripod in order to get this incandescent light to show better on the image. All right, and here is another image that was very close to what the client wanted. Now, this image later on, I actually cropped it. Actually, let me show you the actual. Let me try to redo the crop as close as possible. I narrow this down a little bit this way and this way. And I remove this bed. And basically, what I try to do here is have the incandescent light, natural light, and not have too much harsh shadows. That's one of the compromises you have when the client wants something like this, because the whole purpose of using the strobe is to have absolutely even light. But when the client says, no, I want to see these light bulbs, I want to see this, then you start to deal with a little bit of light shadows that are a little bit difficult to deal with. But at the end of the day, it does make the image look very natural to how it actually looks like versus an image that is heavily manipulated, for example. Yes, and basically, that's it. The idea at the end of the day. Oh, here we go. Here's another one that I want to show you guys. Let me say, I shot this ISO 64, April 2nd. Yeah, this is just natural light. So at the end of the day, the client is the boss. The client decides. So here, you can go for a set. You can go for something like this, which looks very, very natural. The whites look white. I kind of straighten the edges, or when you talk to the client and he says, you know what, no, I want that light to be a little bit warm. I want to be a cozy environment. Well, that's what the client wants. That's fine with me. So, I mean, let me just exposure a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, it's something that it's a choice. Very well. I hope this video was useful to you and as much fun. I know that my video skills are not very good, but the idea is that one can get some ideas on how to use uh, a flash or strobe in architecture photography, how to combine images, and how to expose properly, and most importantly, to combine ambient light and flash. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It really helps the channel. It helps me to continue doing videos like this. So have a great one. Bye bye.